Not only is Luke Fickell's transparency something to appreciate, but the stability he has brought the Bearcats football program is both something long awaited and here to stay. That's on today's episode of Locked On Bearcats.
Are Locked On Bearcats, your daily podcast on the Cincinnati Bearcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you very much for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen of every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online, where the game starts. Alex Frank here with you on this Friday, May 27th of 2022. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. If you're watching on YouTube, thanks for making us your first watch of every day. If you are watching on our Locked On Bearcats YouTube channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We're up to 118 and counting, but we're far from done. We're far from our goal, whatever that is. It's an ambitious goal, but don't forget to hit that subscribe button, follow us, like the video that you're watching today, share a comment. You can go back and do the same for past videos. If you're downloading this podcast from an audio platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts, you can subscribe there too. You can also share a comment and or give it a rating. All of that helps more Bearcats fans like you find this podcast. So Mo Egger, back in 2018, wrote a column for The Athletic. You know Mo Egger from ESPN 1530, 700 WLW, and The Athletic. And there are some things that he mentioned where the title of the article was, "Is the grass greener elsewhere for Luke Fickell?" And this was in year 2. I mean, this was when the Bearcats football program was just first on the rise. And at that point in time, we thought, okay, well, the Bearcats, it's a revival season, but Luke Fickell's probably going to eventually, as Mark D'Antonio, Brian Kelly, and Butch Jones did, ultimately leave for a Power 5 gig. Well, obviously that hasn't happened, but it's interesting to go back to that time and think about what we were thinking. And Mo Egger talked about the fact that he was certain that Luke Fickell was going to leave, but he has not. There are some things he mentioned in that article, and then there's something else he mentioned in an article in 2020 when he talked about what Luke Fickell has given the Bearcats, more important perhaps than winning, is stability. And that quote was, "His public proclamations about being invested in the job he currently has aren't just something he says to fend off speculation." Now think about that for a minute. His public proclamations about being invested in the job he currently has aren't just something he says to fend off speculation. As time has evolved, and Luke Fickell has been here for 5 years going into year 6, we've come to know that what he says in his press conferences, weekly, post-game, on his radio show with Dan Horde and Jim Kelly Jr., we've come to know that those comments aren't just being said just to be said. He's not being told to say those things. And if he is, well, they actually have something to them. Everything he says is transparent, and that transparency has translated to stability. There's something else here. Going back to 2018, Mo Egger says, "I mean, when people recite college football's more tradition-rich programs," this was when Luke Fickell was rumored maybe to be a potential candidate for the Louisville head coaching job. Mo Egger says, "Does Louisville get mentioned in those more tradition-rich programs? A chance to win a national title? U of L's football program is such a train wreck that Fickell might have a better chance." And this is really, this is something when you read this and when I say this. Fickell might have a better chance of dethroning Nick Saban where he is now, and where he is now, he has virtually no chance of that ever happening. But go back to, he might have a better chance of dethroning Nick Saban where he is now. Boom. All you need to know. Luke Fickell has had the chance to dethrone Nick Saban, and he nearly did this past season. Think about how far the program has come from that point. And at that point, the Bearcats program was in good hands. It was Fickell's team. It was Fickell's players. It was his coaching staff. Now, they're coming off a college football playoff season where they played against Nick Saban. I guarantee you if Luke Fickell had gone to Louisville or Maryland or Boston College or Michigan State or Notre Dame, any Power 5 program, he would not have had the opportunity to dethrone Nick Saban. The fact that he had the opportunity at the University of Cincinnati is a testament to his transparency, which is translated to stability. Think about now. You heard John Garcia Jr. mention this on this podcast yesterday. Think about what you can sell to recruits in Ohio. You can come to a program that is not going to have any dysfunction. It's not going to have very many changes to the coaching staff. And if there are going to be very minimal. The only major changes, yes, the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and special teams coordinator positions have changed. Only one time. Thank you. And for 4 straight years, they never changed. Why do you think the Bearcats program became what it is today? Because of the low turnover on the coaching staff. Players aren't going to transfer. Your teammates aren't going to transfer. They're going to come from elsewhere, incoming transfers. You can come to this school and develop, play for championships, and not have any dysfunction like several other programs. That is a huge sell. Look, what do we want in teams that we root for? What we want is, stability. We want teams to compete for championships. That's the goal every season. When you're a fan of a team, you want your team to play for championships. But stability is such an overlooked word in sports. It really is. Mo Egger posed this question after the Bengals won the AFC Championship. And he said, would you rather the Bengals win a Super Bowl and then immediately dip back into irrelevancy, or 10 years of relevancy but no Super Bowls? It's not an easy question to answer. Because let me tell you something from experience, as both a Bearcats fan and a Bengals fan. When your team is irrelevant at the end of the season and the stretch run, it sucks. It sucks, man. Because you're jealous of all these other teams who are competing for championships and their fan bases are head over heels invested in them, and you're just not. It's not fun, man. I'm telling you right now from experience. I went to bed Wednesday night, and I realized the Bengals have not won back-to-back division titles since 1981 and 82. What? Yeah. 40 years. And I actually might need to fact check that. Because at one point in 2012, that was the first time they went to back-to-back playoffs in 30 years. And that's why my biggest fear is the Bengals are going to potentially, this is a one-hit wonder. I don't think that's going to be the case. But think about Cincinnati. They just went to the college football playoff. What happens if they dip back into irrelevancy? It's a very legitimate question. We all want teams to win championships, but there's this fear of irrelevancy that comes into play. The stability that Luke Fickell has given the Cincinnati Bearcats is something this program has never had. When there have been good teams in the past, the head coaches leave or something else happens. In 5 years under Luke Fickell, if you take away 2017, which really doesn't even count, if you look at the last 4 years, 10 plus wins in 3 of them. And by the way, the only season in which they did not was a truncated season due to COVID-19. And oh, by the way, they were under 10 seconds away from winning 10 games that year. So just going to throw that out there. And they probably will win 10 games again this season. For a recruit to be able to come to that environment, now going to the Big 12. Think about all the breaks Cincinnati has had and the stability that Luke Fickell has established in a group of 5 school. The group of 5 schools are supposed to be there for Power 5 schools to bolster themselves. But in the Cincinnati Bearcats case, they have bolstered themselves. They have not given a Power 5 school any benefit that they have. Not Luke Fickell, not Marcus Freeman. Notre Dame is not a Power 5 school. They have not given any Power 5 school any benefits. In fact, They've bolstered themselves so much they've had a better 12 months than Ohio State has had. And that's a fact. And now that the Bearcats are going to the Big 12, Luke Fickell's not going anywhere. We all want our teams to win to compete for championships, but we also want our teams to be stability. There is a great anecdote from a column I recently read from Peter King, and he talked about the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles when Andy Reid was the Eagles head coach. The one thing about the Eagles, they were heavily criticized for never winning a Super Bowl. But you know what? Their fans knew every single year, we have a chance to compete. We have a chance to be really good. We have a chance to be a contender. And sometimes that's better than waiting until the year where you think your team can win a Super Bowl. Stability is such an overlooked word in sports. And yet, that's what Luke Fickell has given this program. That conversation will continue next. But first, I got to tell you about Bet Online. You see, they're our partners, and they are the number one source for your betting needs and sports info. With Bet Online, you can find all of the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next season's NFL futures. Bet Online is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, from live betting to the playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more, about the trends in action. Bet Online, where the game, starts. Thanks for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen of every day. And for your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. The biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Alex Frank here with you. So we're talking about Luke Fickell and the stability he has brought to the Bearcats football program. Look around the country. And I've said this before, but look at the number of programs who have not played in 3 straight conference championships. People like the media and maybe you don't like the word stability, don't like the word consistency. What words resonate with us? What words conjure us? What words get us going? Flashy, championship caliber. Those words. Stability, it's like, what? But it's such, but it is such an overlooked word, and it cannot be sold enough in sports. The Bearcats have never had stability like this. They've never had where the head coach comes in, rebuilds the program, keeps it afloat, whatever, and then just leaves, and then they're back to square one again. Luke Fickell has not only put this program on the map, but he has, established it. For the first time in its history, the Bearcats football program has been established. It's going to a Power 5 conference. Those are two huge testaments and anecdotes and, whatever that Luke Fickell has done to this football program. Brian Kelly took it to the top in 2009, but then he left. Luke Fickell has taken this program to the top, and he's not leaving. Teams have come, teams have taken their swings, teams have tried to lure Luke Fickell elsewhere. He's not budging. I'm here to tell you right now, he's not. How lucky are we in this city and in the community of Clifton that we have guys like Luke Fickell and we have guys like Joe Burrow, and we have those two guys who have completely changed the perception of Cincinnati sports. No longer as if, just another city that happens to have an NFL team and college football program, whatever. All right. Now it's a city that has a football program that, according to Athlon Sports, is a top 15 program. According to multiple other outlets, Sports Illustrated, ESPN included, that are top 25 programs. The Athletic just ranked them number 23 in their post-spring ball. Oh, by the way, did you happen to see that their recruiting class from 2018 is ranked number 4 in a revisit to the 2018 recruiting class top 25 in the Athletic? Did you happen to see that? This is a program that is now not far from the upper echelon of college football. And there are college football teams who are one-hit wonders. And think about what their fan bases are wanting just to be relevant. You think about Michigan State. Not Michigan State. They actually are on the rise. Mel Tucker's done a phenomenal job with that program. Remember when Luke Fickell was going to go to Michigan State? I do too. But Florida State, their fans just want to be competitive once again. See, when you go in at irrelevancy, when you're a player, when you're a coach, when you're a fan of a team, hell, even if you're a writer of a team, someone who's supposed to be a neutral observer and cover the team, I can tell you right now, if I'm covering a team, I want that team to be relevant. Otherwise, my job would suck. And I'd feel crappy about myself. If you've been in any one of those positions and your team is irrelevant, it sucks. Man, I remember the Bengals in 2018, 2019, 2020. Ooh, by the time we get to December, what the hell did you have to look forward to other than Christmas with family, which is not a bad thing? What the hell did you have to look forward to in sports? Well, we'll see you again in the draft. That's why when the Bengals were 7-4 going into December, it was just great. And yeah, it was a little more stressful because, hey, my team's got a shot to make the playoffs. But yeah, when your team is relevant, when your team is competing, you feel a part of something. You feel a part of the NFL. You feel a part of college football. You feel a part of something. You have an opportunity to compete for a championship, a national championship, not just a conference championship. Congratulations. And we'll send you to the Tony the Tiger Bowl or the Idaho Potato Bowl, which they do have some good fries there. Yeah, no, we're going to send you to the Cotton Bowl in Dallas to play Nick Saban. It's so amazing to me what Luke Fickell's accomplished with stability. Everything he has said, it's translated to wins on the field. You can now expect for the Bearcats to win every home game. You can now expect this program to compete for a conference championship. You can now expect that they are going to get some recognition and some respect from the College Football Playoff Committee. When you are the glass breakers, when you are the icebreakers, when you are the first, when you're the pioneer in something, you will get respect for it. The Bearcats will get respect because they became the first group of 5 team to make the college football playoff. The Bearcats will get respect for what they have done as a group of 5 program now going to a Power 5 conference. I know I've said that the media is going to say, oh, it's a fluke. Oh, they got lucky last year. Yeah, whatever. There's also a positive side to this. There's 2 sides to every story. I take the positive side. And I'm looking at it as well. They became the first to do this. And rightfully so, they were. When we talk about stability, you look at the low number of assistant coaches who have left. You look at the low number of transfers. You look at the high number of incoming transfers from Power 5 schools. There is stability that you can sell to recruits. That's where they can thrive. They can come in here and understand, hey, there's a saying, get comfortable being uncomfortable. I believe in that. But at the same time, how are you supposed to develop when you have a new head coach every single year? I think Justin Herbert, for as great as he is, has had 5 head coaches in 6 years. Not coordinators, head coaches, leaders of young men, leaders of men in the NFL. He's great, do not get me wrong, but how hard must that be? When you have the same head coach your whole career, you're successful. You want to know what made Tom Brady so successful? He had Josh McDaniels as his offensive coordinator for a majority of his time in New England. That's stability. You want to know what made Brett Favre so successful early on in Green Bay? Mike Holmgren, his head coach. You want to know what made Joe Montana so successful at San Francisco? Bill Walsh. Stability matters. Low turnover matters. Think about, recruiting. Think about, number of 10-win seasons. Think about always being relevant, always in the conversation. And I've talked about back in February, late February, early March, the model of consistency and how important that is for the Bearcats to have now that they have been to the college football playoff. Luke Fickell is going to give them that. Luke Fickell has planted his flag and established this program. I think that's one thing that the Cincinnati Bearcats that we have overlooked. For the first time in its long history, The Cincinnati Bearcats football program is established. There is an identity associated with this program. And establishment and identity are also two overlooked words in sports. Because you can be a team that wins and it's fun. The fun is in the winning, as Dabo Swinney likes to say. But if you don't have an identity, you're not going to win consistently. That's what this program has established. And it's amazing to me the number of breaks that have gone our way as fans, the program's way, Luke Fickell not leaving. And we may have doubted him early. We may have just been like, he's not a head coach. He's just saying, just to say things. He's not that. His actions have spoken louder than his words. Not heading to Notre Dame, not going to USC, not going to Michigan State, not going to anywhere else. If Ohio State opens up, okay, fine. He's not going to Michigan. He's not going to any other program. He sure as hell is not going to USC. I never bought into that, and I never really bought into Notre Dame either. It is so unique how Luke Fickell has changed the perception of Cincinnati Bearcats football. No longer is it just an afterthought, another school in Ohio. It's now becoming a second Power 5 school in a football-rich state and city of Cincinnati, might I add. Joe Burrow with the Bengals. No longer is this just an afterthought franchise that occasionally is good. They're here to stay. They are relevant, and they now have a player who does not care about what the media says. He does not care about the perceptions created by the media. He is here to help his team win games and play football, and that's what Luke Fickell is here to do. And the best part about them is they may not care what the media thinks. They are very, very respectful in press conferences. If you hear them, there is a humanity element to them. That's why you have to love Luke Fickell, because he just loves ball, but he does things the right way. He's got a winning program. Would you rather be a fan going into a season and it's like, we're going to win a championship, or are we going to be a bust? Or, hey, we're going to compete. And whatever happens beyond winning the conference championship, so be it. Joe Burrow said, hey, winning a playoff game, at least one playoff game every year is the new standard. I'll take that. I don't care if it only leads to one Super Bowl in 15 years. I'll take going to the playoffs multiple times and knowing, hey, more often than not, my team is going to win a playoff game. You think about the San Antonio Spurs. Only 4 times, I think in 19 years, did they lose a first-round series. So many times, when I was a sophomore in high school and I managed varsity basketball, we had this conversation. We had a goal-making session, and we came up with so many goals. Win a district championship, go undefeated at home, win a state championship might have been on there, probably was. But one goal that I think my good friend Justin Rigg, to this day, I'm not sure who wrote that goal down. It never was said in the meeting, but I'm convinced it was Justin Rigg, who, by the way, just signed as an undrafted free agent tight end for the Bengals. It was him who said, win the first tournament game. You can have all these aspirations. You as a fan can have championship aspirations. You as a player can have championship aspirations. But as Russ Heltman said on this podcast earlier last week, was it this week or last week? I think it was last week. Russ Heltman said it. You got to have one eye. You got to have both eyes on what's right in front of you, or else this season's going to go up in flames. If you're building towards winning the championship in 2023, there's no guarantee you're going to do that. Why not try and win one this year? They tried in 2018 when many people thought, 4th place finish, maybe a bowl game. Yeah, they finished second and, 10 wins. So sometimes winning that first game in the postseason is the hardest thing to do. I dogged the Bengals franchise for 31 years. You can have all these championship aspirations, but once you get to the playoffs or the championship, event of your sport, that first game matters. If you don't win that first game, everything else in front of you is now gone. Win the first game. Get comfortable winning in the postseason. And that's why it's so great to know every single year. I don't know what's going to happen beyond the Bearcats playing for a conference championship, winning a conference championship. I do not know. What I do know is the fact that my team is going to compete for a championship in the 6th best conference in college football, and then when they go to the Big 12, will probably do the same in a Power 5 conference. That's what I like. Up next, it's Fun Friday, so I got a fun topic planned for segment 3. There is one sportscaster that plenty of people that I've talked to do not like, but I do. And I'll tell you about who that sportscaster is next on Locked On Bearcats. All right, so every Friday, I like to have a fun Friday segment in segment 3, especially during the offseason when there's not as much, happening within the Bearcats football program, men's basketball program, which, by the way, I was sitting preparing for the show yesterday, and I said to myself, when was the last time I talked about men's basketball on the show? I don't even know. Anyway, so today, and after I recorded yesterday's show, I go on YouTube to check the views and subscribers, and I see this video come up of Mark McGwire's 70th home run in 1998. And Joe Buck's call of it. It's one of my favorite Joe Buck calls. And I got to thinking, why do people not like Joe Buck? Why are they jealous of him? Do they just not like him because they claim that he doesn't root for their favorite team? Do they not like him because he started out big early on in his career? Why do they not like Joe Buck? Joe Buck is one of my favorite announcers. Always has, always will be. I'm ecstatic for him and Troy Aikman that they're doing Monday Night Football. To me, there are very few, if any, better big game announcers than Joe Buck. Seriously, look at his body of work. Again, hate him all you want, be jealous of him. Dan Hellie tweeted something back in 2018, October 27th, 2018. It said the following: Joe Buck is an absolute stud. 4 games in 4 days is just silly. Most NFL play-by-play guys, ladies, spend an entire week to prep for one game. He will do a football game and 4 World Series games in 1 week at an incredibly high level. For those criticizing him for anything, step off. And that was a really, really good tweet. I remember when he tweeted it at the time. What I also remember is, and maybe you don't remember this, and that's okay, but for those who criticize Joe Buck, did you know that in that span, he had 2 World Series games in Boston? He had a Thursday night game in Houston, and then the next night, a World Series game in Los Angeles. And fun fact, that World Series game went 18 innings and lasted 7 hours. And oh, by the way, he also called the game the next night and Sunday night after that. And you want to criticize him and hate him all you want? All right. So that's fine. If you want to say he doesn't show emotion, which my cousin's one of those who thinks that, fine too. I will tell you this then. Go back and listen to his call of the final out of the 2016 World Series. Go back and listen to the Minneapolis Miracle. And by the way, I gave a speech about Joe Buck in my freshman, public speech? I'm trying to remember what the class was called. Great professor, Matt Barnhouse. Great guy. Always enjoy talking to him. So I gave a speech about Joe Buck, and I said, he listens to his critiques. He may not tell you he does. He may not give a hoot about what people say about him. Heck, he has a tattoo on his bicep that says, "So what?" Doesn't care what people think. Oh, if you look at the critiques over the years, he's gotten better, and he's taken them. Not showing emotion. He used to not listen to David Tyree's helmet catch call, listen to the final out of the 2006 World Series. He has gotten better at showing more excitement. And if you want to say that he doesn't say anything, there was a clip on YouTube during the 2013 World Series when he used to call games with Tim McCarver. Man, I miss that crew. And Tim McCarver was talking about something related to Led Zeppelin. And all Joe Buck was saying was what was happening during the game. Well, what did Joe Buck need to do to contribute to that conversation? Tim was dominating it. One thing I love about Joe Buck is his feel for the game and his feel for the flow of the game and what he should be saying is phenomenal. It might be perfect, actually. He doesn't say much, but darn it, he doesn't need to. He just tells you what's happening in as few words as possible. Sometimes the best things are said in as few words as possible. Get to the point. It's something I struggle with in my current job. I'm working on, getting to the point quicker. Yeah, it's not easy to do because you feel like you have to say more words than you do. But then people are going to be like, well, get to the point. Joe Buck gets to the point. And if you want to criticize him for all the things I mentioned, not paying his dues, can he control that his dad was Jack Buck or is Jack Buck? He can't control that. And by the way, he was the number 3 announcer on Fox for football when he got hired. So you want to tell me that Joe Buck didn't pay his dues? He actually did. He came into Fox at its infancy in sports when Pat Summerall and John Madden were the number 1 team, and no one was going to dethrone those guys. So you want to tell me that Joe Buck didn't pay his dues? He did. And by the time Fox had the MLB package, he was 30 years old. Joe Davis is 34 years old, and he's going to be calling the World Series. And I haven't heard anybody complain about that. And I haven't seen anybody complain about that. So what in the world are you doing with Joe Buck? Are you jealous that, oh, his dad's Jack Buck, and here he is, calling the Super Bowl and World Series? Do you know how big events those are? Do you know how much time and preparation goes into calling a Super Bowl and a World Series? There is... I don't know what that was. Yeah, I didn't think that was. That was weird. Do you know how hard it is to call the Super Bowl and World Series? Sometimes he's doing both in 1 year. The Super Bowl only comes around every 3 years. And now with the new television deal that's coming to the NFL, and Joe Buck moving to ESPN, it is going to feel weird. We talk about stability. Joe Buck gave Fox stability. You knew when there was a big game on Fox, Joe Buck was calling it. And when I started watching sports, he was one of the very first announcers I ever watched. And I loved his calmness, his, demeanor, his, preparation, his voice, his calls, his knowledge, everything that makes a great big game announcer. There are very few, if any, better than him. All right, that's going to do it here for Locked On Bearcats this week. It's been a great week. A lot of content we got to. Bold Prediction Tuesday, back with that next week with the wide receivers. We'll have a lot more to get to next week. Probably John Garcia Jr. once again. Maybe Russ Heldman. You never know. Have a great Memorial Day weekend. By the way, I'm not totally sure about this, but the College Channel may be going to only 3 shows a week starting next month in June, which hard to believe that's on Wednesday. But I am going to aspire to record 5 days a week. So expect more than 3 shows a week, even though that's going to be the College Channel requirement for June and July. We've made it through the tough months, April and May. And the podcast has gotten more views and subscribers over the last 2 months. So thank you for that. Hoping to become, dare I say, more stable, but we're not done yet with the subscribers. So hit that subscribe button if you're watching on the Locked On Bearcats YouTube channel. Don't forget to, if you're downloading from an audio platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcast, to subscribe there too. You can also like and share a comment and or give it a rating. And of course, follow me on Twitter at Frankie_90 with 2 N's, NNATI. You can follow me on Instagram, AlexFrank9_, and email me at alex3frank@gmail.com. Thanks for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On NBA Big Board. Rafael Barlow, Richard Stamen, Sam Ferris, and Leif Thulin give fans an in-depth look into the biggest prospects, the latest player rankings, and of course, big boards. Follow Locked On NBA Big Board every day on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Alex Frank for the Locked On Bearcats podcast. Have a great Memorial Day weekend. Please stay safe. Enjoy it. And I will be back on Monday on Memorial Day on the Locked On Bearcats podcast.